Hello, and welcome to 5-Year Club, video number 71. I encountered a fun article today on a topic that I'm very fond of, the Diderot effect. I think I've mentioned it before. I don't think I've dedicated an entire video to it. Even so, I think it's important as a refresher for people who have already heard of it, or as an introduction for people who have not heard of it before, or people who have not bothered to watch all 70 billion years of my previous 70 videos. And so first I'm going to read this article about the Diderot effect because I think it was very well done, a recent article by Louis Chu at qz.com. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about my kind of thoughts on the Diderot effect and some things that you can pay attention to consume more efficiently, to get more happiness out of the stuff that you buy. The dangerous social cycle that makes us buy things we don't need. If that's not a clickbait title, I don't know what it is. All right, people, it's 2018. Clickbait titles, here we go. Despite composing several famous works, the French philosopher Denis Diderot, spent the majority of his life in poverty. Like many Enlightenment thinkers of his time, Diderot had little concern for material possessions. That changed when he received a new scarlet robe from his friend as a gift. The robe was so beautiful that Diderot treasured it above all else. But Diderot also quickly realized that the robe was out of place amongst his other common possessions. He didn't own anything that would match the grandeur of his new robe. And so Diderot went about replacing his old possessions. He replaced his straw chair with a leather one. A large mirror took over the mantel of his fireplace. He filled up the vacant corner of his house with a writing desk. Before long, Diderot found himself in debt. As he remarks in his essay titled "Regrets for My Old Dressing Gown," I was the absolute master of my old robe. I have become the slave of the new one. I gotta say, this is true for trucks too. There are a lot of people who get trucks and have a big truck payment, and it totally destroys them, especially in the South, financially. The Diderot effect. Diderot's story shows how the acquisition of a new possession is never a singular event. Each new purchase often creates a spiral of consumption that leads you to acquire more things. It's a social phenomenon that explains much of our modern consumption patterns. Savvy marketers often bundle complementary products together and make us offers so compelling we cannot refuse them. One seemingly innocent purchase can lead to many bad decisions. Having heard Diderot's warning, we know now what happens when we go about mindlessly acquiring new possessions. But that doesn't make the suppression of this behavior any easier. To understand our true challenge, we need to scrutinize Diderot's story more closely. As he writes in his essay, Diderot cared little for material possessions before he acquired his new robe. He didn't see them as representative of the inherent worth and value of a person. I can bear the sight of a peasant woman without disgust. That piece of simple cloth that covers her head, the hair that sparsely falls across her cheeks, those tattered rags that half cover her, that poor short petticoat that doesn't cover half her legs, her naked feet covered with muck cannot wound me. It is the image of a state I respect. It's the ensemble of the lack of grace of a necessary and unfortunate condition for which I have pity. But shortly after he acquired his new robe, Diderot's views changed. He came to identify with the grandeur and beauty of his scarlet robe. Eventually, he thought the same of his other possessions as well. The poor man may take his ease without thinking of appearances, but the rich man is always under strain. How did a simple robe end up causing Diderot so much grief? What we really want. As it turns out, Diderot was spot on about how material possessions become intertwined with our identity. The wealthier we get, the more things become a form of self-expression. We no longer buy shirts and shorts for the cloth that covers our skin, but also to reflect our tastes and social standing. Geoffrey Miller, evolutionary psychologist, notes in his book Spent that one of the biggest reasons we buy things is to signal virtue. Humans evolved in small social groups in which image and status were all important, not only for survival, but for attracting mates, impressing friends, and rearing children. Today we ornament ourselves with goods and services more to make an impression on other people's minds than to enjoy owning a chunk of matter, a fact that renders materialism a profoundly misleading term for much of consumption. Many products are signals first and material objects second. Our vast social primate brains evolved to pursue one central social goal: to look good in the eyes of others. Ironically, the overt pursuit of status is a low-status activity. Chasing after someone's approval demonstrates low self-worth, which is why we instead opt to chase after possessions. This explains why the biggest companies in the world would spend so much on branding. As Charles Chu notes in his essay, luxury brands like BMW make it a point to advertise to everyone regardless of their income level. It seems like a mistake until you realize that they're not aiming to sell you a car, not directly at least. Their goal is to get everyone to believe that their product is valuable. The money comes in when people buy their products in a bid to signal their status. The pursuit of status. It's absurd that most of us are unhappy, and yet we have never been wealthier throughout history. The problem lies in the nature of the game we're playing. Status is hierarchical by definition, since there can only be one top dog at any time. That makes the pursuit of status an essentially zero-sum game, where your gain is my loss. We can never have enough if we need to have more than our neighbor. But even if we're biologically primed to chase status, it doesn't mean that we need to acquire more possessions. A bigger and better house may force us to spend half our lives working. The same goes for luxury cars, accessories, and jewelry, although to varying degrees. These items are costly in terms of both time and money, yet may have little intrinsic value. In other words, we're really just wasting our time and effort to look better to others. Better instead to participate in activities that are a form of signal, but are also inherently valuable. For instance, work out at the gym. A big reason why people go to the gym is so they can tell others about it. But working out also provides the inherently valuable benefit of being healthy. Speaking or debating publicly. Speaking in front of an audience signals some form of expertise. But the prerequisite is that you must be informed. Knowledge is the main benefit. Teaching others. It's another demonstration of expertise, but it's the protege effect at work as well. You're helping others learn a skill while refining your own understanding. Jim Rohn once remarked that the greatest reward in becoming a millionaire is not the amount of money that you earn, it's the kind of person that you have become to become a millionaire. In other words, we should be aiming for the steak and not the sizzle. If we can't give up the latter, we must make sure it's always accompanied by the former. What are we chasing? It's easy to get lost chasing more without considering what we really want. Therein lies the danger of mindless consumption. Most of the time, all we really get are substitutes or replicas of what we truly desire in life. It takes reflection and honesty with ourselves to figure that out. Take the time to figure out before you embark on your chase. Take the time to figure that out before you embark on your chase. As you may have realized from Diderot's example, it can be very costly when you chase the wrong things. And, I think, so it says, therein lies the danger of mindless consumption. So we could switch this sentence around. We could say, therein lies the danger of mindful consumption. Or we could say, therein lies the benefit of mindful consumption. When I first heard the term mindful, I was thinking this is a bunch of bull crap. Because, yeah, I've got a mind in my head, and I don't know if it's full or not, but mindiness, mindful, what the hell does that word even mean? And the more time that I've spent around the subject, the more I've realized that to a great extent, mindfulness is about introspection, and it's about thinking more about what you're doing. It's about burning more brain cells and just introducing more analytical thought into your life. And in the case of purchasing, we're talking about when we make purchases or do shopping, we're talking about recalling an article like this and then applying the principles in the article to that purchase. And that is mindfulness in the context of shopping. I'm going to give a link to the article, and I suggest you read it yourself, both because I think that that'll help reinforce it, and also because I think there are some interesting links that you can click to from the article, I guess, to some of these other books and essays that they mentioned in the article. A phrase that comes to my mind when the Diderot effect comes up is conspicuous gaps in consumption. And in particular, the image that I come up with is the image of a really nice suburban home, like one of those 2-story stone brick, 3,000-4,000 square feet. Maybe there's a pool in the back, 2-car garage, just a really nice suburban home. Yard is well taken care of. And what's parked in the driveway? Is it the moss-covered Ford from the 70s or 60s that's parked in the driveway? Or is it a BMW? I gotta say, in Willow Glen, it's definitely a BMW. But I respect the old 1985 Civic DX parked in that driveway. And the reason why, I'll tell you about right now. So here's one of my principles, is that if you don't know how you've guarded yourself against a certain risk, you're probably at risk. So when we learn about a risk, such as the Diderot effect, it's a psychological vulnerability. Rather than wait until the risk comes to get us, we want to be proactive and do whatever we can to preempt that risk before it impacts us, because planning is better than fixing. And so, okay, how do we guard against the Diderot effect? And my plan for guarding against the Diderot effect is that I want to keep conspicuous gaps in consumption in my life. I don't want everything in terms of my possessions to make financial sense, in the sense that all of it is at the same level. I want to have some nice things, certainly, but I also want to pair up those nice things with some stuff that's like functional but super cheap. And so that's exactly what I do. And the reason why I do it this way is because I know that by intentionally having a mismatched material life and knowing that I am aiming for a mismatched material life, I am a lot less tempted to pursue completing a set of expensive stuff, because that's not even my goal. And if I look at part of my life and I say, it's really weird, Lewis, that I don't know, what's a good mismatch in here? It's really weird, Lewis, that you have that, shoe rack that you took from by the garbage outside, and also that really nice walnut sewing desk. It's like a reproduction of Shaker furniture. Because one of those is probably worth like 10 or 15 or zero, and the other one is probably a few $100s. I don't know. There's not that many black walnut sewing desks around. Anyhow, I want it to be that way because I want to ward off the temptation to complete a set of nice stuff. So I don't want a temptation to buy a shoe rack that costs as much as that sewing desk. I embrace my cheap/free shoe rack that's kind of leaning over also, because it protects me to some extent from this psychological vulnerability, because now my identity is somebody who owns a bunch of mismatched stuff because I'm trying to escape this, Diderot effect vulnerability that is going to come and ruin my plans with material wants. And not only that, but it's also like, it's not just like the actual spending on the material wants that hurts you, it's also wanting it in the first place, because that distracts you from being content with what you already have. And another thing is, if you want to avoid making, these impulsive, matchy purchases, make yourself a long ass list. I like how the word ass functions to emphasize long rather than actually functioning to communicate ass in that sentence. Anyway, make a long ass list of things that you should bring up and ask yourself before you make a purchase. And the longer your list and the more you think about it, the more value you're going to get per dollar spent in your life. And so let's go through these questions. Do I already own something that will perform this function? If you already own a wine bottle opener, maybe you just need to use your wine bottle opener and you don't need to buy another one. If you buy something, can you resell it? For how much? For example, used camera lenses can often be resold for about what you bought them for. And so that's a more reversible purchase than if you buy a brand new car. Brand new car is going to lose at least 10% of its value as soon as it's driven off the lot. So can you resell it? For how much? How much time will it take to resell it? Because your time is valuable. If you have something that will take, like a house takes a while to list, but man, I got to say, especially like me collecting yo-yos, if I sold my yo-yo collection, listing those yo-yos individually would take a long time. And I kind of regret getting them because now I'm like, oh my God, it's going to take me a long time to resell all those. And so how much time will it take to resell? And finally, am I okay with this thing ending up in a landfill? Because if you buy something and you don't resell it and someone else doesn't get use out of it, where is it going to end up? You're going to die someday, or your relative's going to take it and use that for another 100 years? Not many items fit that criteria. Not many items are still around in 100 years. All right. Do I have time to use this? I don't have time to use many new things anymore. So that's one reason why I avoid a lot of purchases, because I look at something and I'm like, you know what? I really like that. It really looks tempting, but I know I don't have time to use it. So cry because it looks really cool. And can I borrow or rent the same item for the amount of time that I'll use it? And I gotta say, two great examples for this is vacation homes and sports cars. If you want to drive a Ferrari, don't buy a Ferrari, rent a Ferrari. Does it cost money to rent a Ferrari? Sure, it's expensive to rent a Ferrari. But it's a lot more expensive to maintain a Ferrari and take the depreciation hit if you buy one and pay any interest if you took out a loan to buy the Ferrari. So renting the Ferrari for a lot of people is going to give you like 60% of the Ferrari experience for like 2% of the Ferrari price. And that's a good trade-off. Vacation homes, same thing. If you're not renting out a vacation home, which arguably could be considered more of like a rental investment property, then you essentially, most of the year, are going to have this thing sitting around rotting, giving you opportunity cost, because money in index funds would just totally kick its ass in terms of, return over any decent period of time. And if you rent a vacation home, you can change the place where you're vacationing, and you can vacation somewhere else. So you have a lot more flexibility and, a lot less opportunity cost by just renting vacation homes. It's a financially smart thing to do. Even if, people say it's good to own a home, vacation homes, it's smart to rent them. And is there any particular area where you are vulnerable to the Diderot effect? I gotta say, in the case of yo-yos, that was totally me. I just wanted the ultimate yo-yo. And so I just kept chasing the ultimate yo-yo. And no doubt at this point, I think I have the ultimate yo-yo. But it took a while and probably too much money. So, oh no. The other thing I wanted to show you is some personal insanity I have. Is that video game controllers and controllers in general. Now, certainly some of these you can't avoid, right? Like TV remotes come with the TV. And if you have one video game console, you got to have some of that. You want to play some Super Mario on a computer, you got to have a different one. I'm a single person here. Do I need 3 PlayStation 4 remotes? And I got to say, I've got 4 PlayStation controllers now because I bought another one. No, I don't need 4. But I'm crazy, so I have that. And I know that, like, the ultimate video game controller or a better video game controller is definitely in my mind like it's a thing. And also just kind of like the matchiness of the sets. And there's somehow some weird desire to always get 4 because you're going to have some friends over and play. I don't know. I just know that I buy way too many of these. And I took this picture for myself to remind myself that, hey, Lewis, you compulsively buy controllers. Stop. Like, you've got a lot. You know, because these usually live in a like a drawer, like a cheap kind of wiry drawer thing that I got from IKEA. So I don't see them all the time. But putting them all out and taking a picture of it just reminds me, like, wow, I have way too many of these. I really don't need to buy another one. Even though right now, you know, these Joy-Cons, right? I'm thinking about getting another set. I really want the gray ones. I totally don't need them because I play this thing for, I don't know, maybe half an hour a day. And, you know, the battery on the controllers lasts for 20 hours. So, like, you know, come on. That's ridiculous. I don't need another set. It's not like I'm running out of battery. And I've got this other one, this Pro controller. So I can actually play with either 2 people or with 1, 2, 3 people on games like Mario Kart. So I really don't need another controller, but I want it because I have, you know, my Diderot effect around video game controllers. Some people have it around other things, makeup, or I don't know, crayons, or I don't know, all kinds of things. Who knows? Anyway, pay attention to it. Maybe go and watch where I explain these questions one more time just to burn them into your brain. And click through and read this article and check out some of the links. I think it's a pretty brilliant article on the Diderot effect. You can also look up Diderot effect on YouTube, and there are some amusing videos. It's good, nerdy fun. All right, that's it. That's it for 5-Year Club video number 71. Thank you for watching.